David.
Lennon.
It's finally time. It's finally time for us to check out.
Oh, yeah. Woo!
Woo! It's finally time for us to check out the iconic Dead Space trilogy.
Oh, baby, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
We posted a poll and 66% of you guys voted for Dead Space over the Crisis trilogy. So over the next few weeks... You son of a bitch. Over the next few weeks, David and myself will be making ourselves whole again, if you will, by exploring each of the Dead Space games to see if they do, in fact, hold up in the year of our Lord 2025. So, obviously, today we are going to be revisiting Dead Space. Just to clarify, though, so I actually played the 2008 version, which came out on Xbox 360 originally, and I believe, David, you played the 2023 remake?
I did. I played the better version.
To be fair, I am kind of jealous because I've seen...
You had the choice. You had the option.
I know, man. I know. But, I mean, I've seen so many videos of the remake version and it just looks absolutely stunning. So, you know, fingers crossed the rest of the series gets a remake treatment. But stick around to the end of this video, by the way. There will be spoilers if you haven't played this game. If you haven't played this game, what are you doing? Just play the game. But it's been around since the beginning of time, basically. We'll cover the story and go through our thoughts about the game and then reach the verdict at the end of this video. But I reckon we should just start off with the story and setting, David.
Love it. Let's do it.
In Dead Space, you play as Isaac Clarke, and he's an engineer sent with a small repair crew to fix a massive planet-cracking mining ship, which is called the USG Ishimura. And not only that, but he's also received...
I love that name.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that name. It's like the best name you can give. It's the best name you can give to the ship. It's the best name. It's the best planet cracker. It's a great planet cracker.
Not only that, but he's also received a distress call from his girlfriend, Nicole. So he's hoping to kill two birds with one stone, so to speak. He's going to fix the ship and save the girl. But very quickly, Isaac and his crew find the ship completely overrun by grotesque
There's something
alien...
sinister going on.
Yeah, that's right. I've got a sneaking suspicion that something's afoot here.
There's an imposter among us in the vents.
Among us. But yes, so it's a bunch of basically this swarm of grotesque alien mutilations called the... Fuck, what are they called again?
The Necromorphs?
The Necromorphs. So they are basically born from this mysterious artifact known as the Marker. So I guess let's just talk about the Ishimura for a second here, because obviously all of the levels, you're traversing all of these different areas within the Ishimura ship. And just, I think it's the perfect setting, David. Just it itself feels like this living, breathing horror set piece. You're going through this labyrinth of all these hallways and, you know, up and down all these elevators. It feels so claustrophobic, and you never know when something's going to jump out at you because the ship is just falling apart, basically. It's just gone to shit. And, you know, watch out for the vents. Watch out for the vents. But yeah, what do you think? What do you think of the setting?
It's the perfect setting. The USG Ishimura is pretty much a character in its own right, and it is a beautiful setting to obviously have a horror game take place in, especially with its claustrophobic setting, the eeriness of the Necromorphs. You truly do feel alone in this ship. There are no allies that you have. There is no backup that's behind you. You are literally a one-man gun at the moment, and oh boy, it looks incredibly beautiful on the remake, especially with the different levels. It has its own unique different systems, also unique different visuals, which you can see that you're going through different parts of the ship, and you can see that this ship was once a livable, massive
colony,
thing that had
so to speak,
a colony on it, that people were living on it.
Gosh, when you were talking about like being a one-man army, can I just quickly say how useless your allies are? Like, specifically, like, the commander guy. He's, like, always calling you. He's always hitting you up once you've completed a task, and he's just like, great job, Isaac. That's really cool. Hate to be a pest, though, but can you now go over to this part of the ship and do yet another super dangerous task for me? And then it's
Isaac,
like, before
would you kindly?
Well, you know, in the original version of the game, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but the original version of the game, Isaac just doesn't talk. But then in the new version, he does talk. He's got actual dialogue and voice lines. But, you know, basically the commander guy just does not give Isaac a chance to even respond because he's like, oh, anyway, I think I can hear something moving around. I gotta go. But anyway, you do that job for me. It's just like, come on, man. Am I doing everything here? I'm just an engineer.
Yeah, I was just meant to fix the ship. No, I 100% agree. So, you know, in the 2008 version, it really much was like, you know, he was a silent protagonist. Yeah. Besides a few grunts in here when he got damage. And it is right. Like, the commander's like, hey, Isaac, do this. By the way, gotta go. Monsters everywhere.
Gotta blast.
In the remake, he is voiced by the same voice actor that did the voice in Dead Space 2 and 3.
Yeah.
So it definitely feels very continuous with the remake. And it is a nice little touch that he does have a voice in the remake because it does open up a lot more story-driven elements that we don't really see in the 2008 version compared to obviously the 2023 version. And he's acted brilliantly. Like, the voice actor knows how to play Isaac because he's played that. He's embodied that character for so many years.
Yeah. No, well, I didn't even realize it was the same voice actor, so that's really fascinating. And it makes sense. It's really cool that the voice actor was able to reprise the role as well. Yeah. So, for continuity's sake, I think that's awesome. But I
love continuity.
Can we talk about the presentation, but also more specifically, one thing that I find so groundbreaking about Dead Space? So, again, keeping in mind the context that this game came out in 2008, how ahead of its time this game was when it came to the HUD, or lack thereof. Like, everything you need to know is a part of Isaac's suit. Yeah. You know, you've got the health bar is on his spine, the ammo counter is like everything.
Hovering on the gun.
It's just all the menus and comms, they're displayed in real time without you actually ever pausing the game, which, by the way, as someone who hates anything scary, that is horrible because
it's awful, isn't it?
I'm like trying to listen to what these people are saying. And I'm like, is a necromorph just going to jump out at me like while I'm just trying to listen to this? I would have to stop moving because I knew that if I moved somewhere else, something's probably going to jump out at me. It was horrible, but obviously in a good way. But I just thought it was so cool that the cutscenes and the crew communications and literally everything, like even you looking at your inventory and all that stuff, it's all in real time. You don't ever go to like a pause menu or anything like that. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's incredible. I remember when I first played the 2008 version for the first time and just seeing like, okay, my inventory is just a part of the suit. And I really couldn't comprehend back then, like, why did they make it like this? But now replaying it, it doesn't allow you to rest. It always keeps you in a heightened state, especially when you hear them crawling in the vents and you're like, they're going to pop out of that vent. And then they don't, and you're just like, I hate that because it's just the anticipation that gets you.
Yeah. And this game does such a good job at that.
And it does it brilliantly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, besides just how good this game looks, like, the game looks good, the sound design is incredible, and how, I think as well, just with the presentation, with like when you're shooting at the enemies and dismembering them and all that, it's just really impressive physics. But you touched on something there, and I kind of want to talk about it now. I want to hear your opinion. How effective do you think this game is with horror?
Oh, I think it's incredibly effective. Yeah. I think it's one of the best horror experiences that you can play. If you've never played a survival horror game, Dead Space is a great entry into the survival horror space. I think it does it so well because it just, like I said, it builds up that anticipation. Like, you know, you just don't know what's around the corner and you always feel alone. But at the same time, you always feel like you're being watched. You always feel like there's eyes on you, and it always keeps you in a heightened state, especially when you know that one could pop out of a vent and immediately end you, like completely just crush you. Or you can find yourself in an arena and the quarantine goes up and you're like, oh boy, here we go.
Yeah, and can I also say as well, I think the movement plays a really big factor into how terrifying this game can be as well, because Isaac is kind of slow. He
is, yeah.
He moves slow, he turns. Dude, the look sensitivity is so slow. and also, like, when you're like face to face with the necromorph and you accidentally, like, you're swinging at them, which is like pretty ineffective, and you're trying to like switch to aiming and shooting and all that stuff, like anything it's just so slow, dude. It's frustrating, but I think it adds to this claustrophobic feeling in a way. And another thing is that, kind of like what you were talking about just before, how it's like quarantine areas where you're trying to, like, you know, you're facing off against a couple of enemies, I guess. I found myself always having to look, like I was constantly doing like 360s, just looking around, because you never know which way they're going to spawn from, and especially with enemies coming through from the vents, you're like, There are so many fucking vents in this room. This could be the one in front of me. It could be the one behind me. And it has a classic jump scare noise always popping off all the time. And I'm just like, I've got no idea what's going on or where this is coming from. But it's genuinely terrifying, dude.
Yeah, it does it so well. There are so many horror games that I've played that use cheap jump scares. I don't feel like it pays off. But I feel like in this game, in Dead Space, especially with the remake, that everything that they built in this world or in this game, it just pays off so well. Because, like I said, it just keeps you on the edge of your seat, especially when you're playing on those hard difficulties, and it really does feel like it's truly survival horror because you have limited ammo, limited health, and you have to be strategic on how you actually play this game.
Oh, definitely. And you mentioned world building, and it made me think. So when it comes to the world building of Dead Space, I think, because like I've said, I hate horror. Like I'm really not good with getting scared. It's funny, when we just did the BioShock series, I was saying about how typically I don't play games with the volume up too much because usually I'm listening to like a video or a podcast anyway, so noise isn't as important to me. But I felt like I had to listen to everything because I wanted to hear all the story in the BioShock series. But with Dead Space, I also had to have the volume turned up because I didn't want to be caught by surprise by something that's popped up. It's so important to be able to hear where everything is coming at you from. But one thing that I find really interesting is that for me personally, it probably took me about 2 levels for me to kind of get over. I'm like, okay, I've got an idea of getting jump scared and what's going to come at me. I'm kind of used to it now. It's almost like you get desensitized to it. It's not that the jump scares aren't as effective, but you're like, all right, I know what this game is about now. But with that scare factor diminishing, my interest in the game didn't diminish. If anything, I was like, okay, this is good because now I can just focus on enjoying the story and enjoying okay, I've got this task, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. Like, I was still so engaged, even though I was getting used to that scare loop, if that makes sense. Do you feel the same way about this game?
It's hard because I feel like in the 2008 version, I would agree with you, but I feel like in the remake, they do it a little bit better. That's because with the remake, new facelift and, better tighter controls, there are some technical enhancements in the remake.
Okay.
Like an example, instead of going on a train and loading into each level, it's all seamless. You can just use a train to go anywhere. You don't have to load the screen.
That's so cool.
You got the modern visuals, but they also did implement an adaptive intensity system, which, if I were to compare it to another game, it's like the Left 4 Dead 2 system, where essentially it knows how well you're doing in the game or if you're not doing well, and it will tailor what's going to happen in the next room or around the corner with randomized events.
Are you serious?
So so no 2 playthroughs are the same.
Oh my god, I would find that so hard.
So you could be like, oh, I know where they're going to come from, but in the remake, they do it so subtle and so well that 2 rooms are never the same, and you're always
fascinating.
Yeah, and to me, when I was playing that, I was always on the edge of my seat because I'm like, hey, I'm actually doing quite well. I got a lot of ammo, I got quite a lot of health, I'm pretty stocked up. But then something would happen and I'm like, oh my god, I had to waste so much ammo, or I'm like, I'm about to die. Because the game just rocks you.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear. I guess I was curious if it was like a proper remake and if it changed many of the core, because as far as I'm concerned, like I'm playing through the 2008 version and I think that the core mechanics and how it works is just great as it is. And the fact that they've improved on it in that way to make it the gameplay experience a lot more dynamic and unique, that's awesome. Like that actually makes me want to play the remake version now just to see what the difference is. That's really cool.
You should, because the difference, like, it's just the small touches, but they just go such a long way. Another example is when you go into 0G on the 2008 version, of course you had to stick to
0G, I'm so glad you brought that up.
Stick to walls. In the remake, they pretty much take it from like Dead Space 2 and 3, and Isaac can move around freely in his suit.
Oh, that's cool. That's really, really cool. Because I thought it was really ahead of its time that I'm playing through this, I'm like, oh wow, it's really cool that, you know, you got not just the threat of the necromorphs and all these different types of necromorphs, which is cool, but the fact that, you know, you've got these different zones where you're literally out in space, or you're in these little chambers where there's zero gravity and you have to, like, you know, aim to jump to all these different sides of the room. I thought that that was so ahead of its time and outside of the box. But to hear that it sounds a lot more... I haven't played Dead Space 2. I've played a bit of Dead Space 3. But to hear that you can just kind of like float around and fully just control Isaac in the air, that sounds awesome.
Oh, it's incredible. And they do fix those same zero-G elements to improve or to be as difficult as it was in the original as well.
Okay, well, that's really cool. I'll keep that in mind for when I check this game out in the future, the remake version.
And they do fix the stupid turret section of the asteroid. They fix that as well.
Oh, dude, I found that really excruciating. That I actually failed at that a couple of times when I was playing, because it was like the aiming was just atrocious, dude. But it's good to hear that they improved on that as well. But just moving along, I guess. So I guess we're talking a lot about the elements and the horror and all that stuff. Just the general gameplay. I touched on it before, but there's kind of like a strategic dismemberment system in this game. So you're using all of these tools. You know, you've got the plasma cutter or whatever. All these. I can't remember all of the names of the guns, unfortunately, but I think you got like the Ripper. You got this one. It's like the saw blade in front of you. When I heard the description in the store, I was like, that sounds. I don't know. Like, I don't know how effective that would be. That turned out to be my favorite weapon. It was so cool. You get like a flamethrower and all that stuff, but basically the aim of the game is that all of these necromorphs, to a certain degree, there's so many different varieties of enemies.
Yes.
And you got to be really mindful on how you take them down. So, you know, when it comes to...
Headshots don't count.
100%. And I love that. It's so cool that, you know, you got your normal slashers that just try and rush you, and you just shoot off their legs to slow them down, and you can stomp on their head or whatever. You know, you've got these lurkers, which are like these terrifying mutilated babies that crawl on the walls. Like, they fire projectiles at you. Like the list goes on, and I won't go through all of them, but I just wanted to highlight, I guess, or bring attention to that there is actually a lot of thought that goes into how you handle all these different enemies, and there's a fair bit of strategy, which I thought was really cool as well. Did you have any particular highlights or any particular weapons or enemies that stood out to you?
Yeah, you know, obviously, you know, for me, the plasma cutter is like the best, especially when you fully upgrade that. That thing is so good. In the remake, they do revamp some of the weapons so their secondary fire systems are a lot better.
Oh, so.
Which is a nice touch. The Ripper is so fun. I love using the Ripper. Just, you know, getting that saw blade and just, you know, it's like a chainsaw going into them. One of my, you know, the one enemies that always I liked was the Exploder. The exploding arm. And I was always on edge of them because you'd be surrounded and you would hear them like just start to creep up on you.
Yeah.
But the one thing I just loved was just to get that shot right on their arm and either dismember them and then use your stasis to pick it up and then just throw it back at a group of enemies, or just hit it just right where it just can create an explosion.
Yeah. Did you use stasis that much in this game? Obviously outside of like, you know, slowing down doors and like puzzles and stuff. But
Yeah, no, I did. I played on a harder difficulty, and just, you don't think that, you know, on lower difficulties I can see it's probably not used that much, but just that extra second or two can be the difference between life and death.
Makes a lot of difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Well, the more we talk about it, the more I just realize like how unique the weapons and encounters and the gameplay mechanics are, and how you've got these like the kinesis, like you can pull things and move things around. Like, I just think that's really cool. And yeah, just stasis as a whole, and how many different things that you can interact with, whether it's enemies, whether it's pulling like a little crate for you to swing at or stomp on. Like, there's just so many different ways to play the game, and I think that that's really cool, because in this game I found that I didn't really deviate too much from like, say, 2 or 3 different types of guns, and I naturally tried to avoid getting as close to the enemies as I possibly could, so I probably wasted way too much ammunition on enemies, and I didn't even really think to use stasis that much on enemies, to be honest, unless they were like really, really fast. So yeah, it's interesting to hear your style of gameplay, I guess, versus, I guess, my experience. But if I could say one thing that I didn't really like as much about this game, it's the workbench system. So, you know, you can upgrade your weapons and your suit, by using power nodes, which that in itself is fine. I thought it was great that you could upgrade your equipment, and because you definitely need to in this game, I think, to be more effective against the enemies. But the element that I didn't like about it is that you've got what I would describe as kind of like this web, or this skill tree, so to speak, or this tree of all these slots where you're attributing a power node to an upgrade. But sometimes you would need to spend power nodes on blank tiles to slowly make your way to another upgrade. And that kind of infuriated me a little bit, because it's like, why not just have it where you've just got this branch or this tree of just upgrades, and every time you spend a power node, you're getting a point, or you're getting an increase. Sometimes it just felt like I was just blowing a power node just so I can get to the next tile. And I don't know if I'm explaining that well enough, but I think
I 100% get what you mean.
Yeah, how do you feel about that?
You know what, I 100% agree with you. I can see why they designed it that way, to obviously make it more strategic, to be like, hey, should I use 2 power nodes to get this one upgrade?
Yeah.
Especially since power nodes are a much very scarce object around the Ishimura. And I can see obviously your side. It is infuriating because you obviously want to upgrade the best that you can to give yourself the best chance. And obviously it is frustrating because you're like, I don't have enough to get the one upgrade I want, and you may not ever get it. And it does, when I play the 2008 version, for the first or second or third time, it does deter me from doing it a lot more.
Yeah.
Because, I just don't want to try and scour for power banks and waste a power bank. On the flip side of that, in the remake, they got rid of that entirely and made it the way you want it to be, which is essentially a skill tree. It's all skill tree now.
Oh, fuck, dude. I really should have played the new version, because it's honestly one of my only gripes about the game, because I guess my argument would be that, I would even think that, like you said, power nodes are quite scarce as it is. If you got rid of these empty spaces, I feel like you would still struggle to get every upgrade that you would want anyway. So I don't know. I just felt like that could have been refined a little bit more.
But is now.
Fuck, dude. Well, I'm glad you had a better experience with that. I probably, usually we do cover the endings of the games. I mean, to be honest, I think this game itself is quite straightforward. And again, I'm just going to reiterate, and about to go through just very quick spoilers here. But in short, Isaac learns that the marker is the source of the Necromorph outbreak, not the cure, and it's been manipulating him throughout the game, because as it turns out, your girlfriend, Nicole, is dead. So, so she was actually dead before Isaac even arrived. And it's really cool, because they kind of set this up a little bit, because some of the audio logs you listen to, they kind of list off the symptoms of what people on the ship have been experiencing. And there was one that just blatantly said that he thought he was hearing from his dead partner, or that the partner was still alive, but it turns out that they were actually dead and they were hallucinating it. I'm like, wow, that sounds very familiar.
Sounds like a fun drug.
Yeah, but there'd be times where she'd pop up and help you out, or she'd try and talk to you, but yeah, it turns out it's just all a hallucination. And as Isaac pieces everything together, Kendra Daniels basically betrays him, revealing that she's been working to recover the marker for corporate research. But obviously before she can escape, she's killed by the hive mind, which is kind of like the big boss battle in this game.
Gets fucked up by the hive mind. Gets
fucking oath, dude. Fucking oath. And yeah, basically Isaac destroys a hive mind and escapes. But of course, being a Dead Space game, it ends with a fucking annoying, well, not annoying, but this massive jump scare where, we're finally kind of like seeing his face. You can technically see his face at the start of the game. I don't know about the new version, but basically he's just like, he gets... Okay, fuck, dude. I really should have played the new version. But anyway, so at the end, you see his face and he's just like sitting down, and then he kind of turns, looks over his shoulder, and then it's just this jump scare of just dead Nicole, basically. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's Dead Space. So I'm very, very excited to see what happens in the next game. But
let me just say that they really do take it up a notch, especially with the world building and obviously Isaac's character development.
Yeah.
Before we obviously move on, obviously the differences between the story is a little bit different in the remake. Obviously,
Okay.
Isaac has a voice and has more communication with Kendra, and it actually does feel like a bigger betrayal when Kendra does that, because obviously she's very likable in the remake.
Really?
As
Okay, because
well,
she fucking
yeah.
annoyed me in the original one.
Yeah, she's you get to learn a lot more about the background of the characters, especially because Isaac has a voice. On top of that, the remake does actually have side missions, because you are able to travel freely between different stations down on a loading screen. It does have some side missions, some backtracking missions that you can do, which does offer some story-driven insight about what went wrong with the Ishimura, which I found really interesting to do, and they do reward you as well. And, you know, they do handle the deaths of the characters a little bit better as well. So,
okay,
overall, just some small differences, but it just adds like a quality of life with the narrative in a way.
Okay, well, that's really good to know, because I do feel like, to a certain degree, some of those elements from the 2008 version maybe are a little bit dated, but just with the execution of everything else, you kind of are willing to like overlook it for the sake of the rest of the execution. But again, like I sound like a broken record, but I'm really glad to hear that a lot of this has been touched up with the remake version, and it honestly just sounds like it is the definitive version to play of this game. But I feel like we've almost covered everything. I guess before we move on to the final thoughts, I do have a question for you, David.
Oh, dude, hit me with it.
Are you hungry?
Yes.
Talking about all this grotesque necromorph stuff has me hungry, so I thought I would... Let's talk about some Easter eggs. Woo! Oh, no. Starting off with the first Easter egg, David. So this is probably the most well-known Easter egg from the Dead Space 1 game. So while you're progressing through the story, if you note down the first letter for every chapter name in the game and put all of the letters together, it actually tells you about the fate of Nicole. And it says Nicole is dead. Yeah, she's alive, dude. Which of course is referring to is referring to Nicole, who aids Isaac through various parts of the game. I thought that was really clever, and apparently it was something that not a lot of people at the time clued onto until, of course, the arrival of amazing websites called Reddit, where everyone shares this information.
But yeah, no, you are a really cool touch, especially because I don't think anyone would have thought to like note down each different letter or save different slots to spell it out.
Exactly, but I just thought it was a neat touch. I thought it was a nice inclusion. Makes me wonder how many games do that. But moving on to the second Easter egg, David. So once you've reached chapter 10, End of Days. Upon entering the first room of the crew deck, there are several movie posters on the walls, and one of them is for a movie called Rancid Moon. So if you didn't know, David, Rancid Moon was the working title for the initial concept of the game, which was it was originally meant to be set in a space prison called Rancid Moon, but the project was later rebranded to Dead Space. And I guess as a further extension to that, apparently at some point in, what's that game that came out in 2022? The Callisto Protocol? Yeah, so apparently I think one of the lead designers of the devs on the original Dead Space moved across to do that, or as like a bit of a passion project, and that's why we've got the Callisto Protocol, because it's set in basically a space prison. And apparently there's also a poster in that game of Rancid Moon as well. But I just thought that was really interesting, And for the last Easter egg, David, so this is actually one for the Dead Space remake only. So in Chapter 11, while you're in the hangar section trying to move the marker, there's an area where you can look up and you can see the lit up name of the ship USG Ishimura. However, most of the lights in Chapter 11 are turned off from the sign, with the only remaining letters being lit is us is you. So, I've scoured through Reddit, David, and a lot of people believe that this is a cheeky reference to the marker's goal of implanting itself in Isaac's mind and becoming one with him. Throughout the story, you've got Nicole saying, make us whole, and that's, basically the marker trying to communicate with him. So it's the whole idea of us is you. Alternatively, other people feel like this is another hint or reference to how Nicole isn't alive despite Isaac's hallucinations, so it isn't Nicole and Isaac, it's just Isaac. So it's supposedly a spoiler or a hint at the fact that there isn't two of you, it's just you. So I thought that was interesting.
Make us whole again.
It hasn't been like it hasn't been confirmed if this is really anything, but it was just an interesting Easter egg. And let's face it, just with how many hints or little playful, I guess, Easter eggs or just notes that are left throughout the game, even just for Dead Space 1, I just thought, surely this is something, right? Surely this is something.
Yeah, I honestly didn't know that. Really interesting.
Yeah. But I guess let's start concluding. Let's start winding this down, David. I guess I just want to hear your final thoughts. We've basically been glazing this game for the most part of this whole recording, so I don't think it's going to be to anyone's surprise that you do not recommend this game for 2025 and it doesn't hold up today.
Could you imagine?
This remake that came out 2 years ago does not hold up today.
You should play the Calypso Protocol instead. That was better. No, in all seriousness, Dead Space definitely holds up well. It is an amazing experience. It will keep you on the edge of your seat. It is beautifully designed with its mechanics and its setting. And I honestly couldn't think of a better horror game to start out with with its original vision back in 2008, or if you want the definitive edition with the best experience, the 2023 remake.
Honestly, I couldn't have said it better myself. Even though I haven't played the Dead Space remake, I would actually say that the 2008 version still absolutely holds up today. With the remake being out, though, I would say that that's probably the most easily accessible game to access on a store. So I would definitely recommend that based on what you've told me, David. Of course, that's still going to hold up today. That came out 2 years ago, but the 2008 version still absolutely holds up today. There's a bit of jank, I would say. You know, there's a couple of elements that are a bit like, okay, this feels like it is trying to follow a couple of the classic horror tropes of jump scares, and maybe it relies on it a little bit too much, but I think that is a really small issue to raise with it, along with, you know, the workbench system or whatever. That pales in comparison to how effective the rest of the story is, the setting, the gameplay. It feels really fun to play, even though it's slower. That's not necessarily a bad thing. And I just think it's a really interesting story. So overall, I definitely think it still holds up today. But I'm really excited, David, for next week because, one, I haven't played Dead Space 2 before, and apparently, as you've said, it's the scares, the action, and apparently the setting is really cool as well from what I've heard. But I'm really excited to check that out with you next week. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below if you agree or disagree, if you think that Dead Space 1 holds up. And we'll catch you next week. Make us whole again.
Make us whole again. Subscribe, share, and tell your friends about us.
Please, we're desperate. We need to grow.
Please.